Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Smart TCG with a brand new set, Pokemon 151 just releasing. That is going to have some effect on the current metagame. So today we're going to be going over a tier list with Pokemon 151 included. With that being said, if you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And we got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers here. We got BDAF, best deck and format. Tier 1, incredibly powerful decks, have decent matchups against most things. Tier 2, very strong decks, do have some flaws though versus, potentially like specific matchups that might be in the tier 1 or BDF portion of the tier list. Then tier 3, decks that are okay, maybe can perform once in a while, but do have multiple flaws. And then we also have the rogue tier list as well. Shout out to my good friend Little Dark Fury as well for making this tier list as well. If you want to create your own tier list, make sure to go check out the link in the description. But anyways, with that being said, let's hop into it. So let's start off with some of the new things. Let's start off here with Blastoise. I think Blastoise is a pretty powerful deck. Its attack twin cannons is very, very strong. Some people think it has potential to be better than Chen just because it has so much more HP. And I think that it is a relatively decent Pokemon. Do I think it's a tier 1 deck? Not necessarily. However, I do think it pairs very, very nicely with Palkia V-Star and things like the Bibarel, so I would not be surprised to see this deck see some play. The one issue with it right now is that Miraidon has been gaining so much popularity and seeing lots of success recently, and that is one concern, is that Blastoise is still unfortunately weak to lightning, which is one of the few things that is holding itself back. It is also a stage 2 as well, so you still need to run rare candies and stuff like that. But if you are able to get it set up, it is one of the most powerful forces in the game. Moving on, throughout some of the other decks as well, Alakazam, Klefki. I think that deck is kind of cool. I don't think it's amazing. If your opponent is able to hit through Klefki's, dealing 120 is relatively weak. However, I do think it does have some potential. Maybe it moves up in the tier 2, but as of right now, we'll put it in tier 3. I know some people have been making some videos on it. Maybe I'll make a video on it in the future, but I do think it does have potential just because Klefki is such a powerful card. So we'll put it in tier 3. I don't think it's entirely a rogue deck. I think it might have some potential in the future. Moving on, let's go into some other big meta decks that have been getting lots of talk. We got the Charizard variants. I do not like this Charizard variant, Charizard Gallade. I think that it is okay. However, I think that it is quite inconsistent in the early game. That's just my personal opinion. I think that it has potential, obviously being able to use refinement and then also the Gallade to search for supporters that you need. I think that's pretty cool. I think it does have potential. However, I'm more of a fan of the Arceus and Pidgeot version along with the Lost Zone variant as well. I think it's okay. It's been doing well in Japan. And I have seen some success in online tournaments as well. So I do think that it will perform relatively well. It's just personally not my Charizard variant of choice. My Charizard variant of choice is actually going to be Lost Zone Charizard. Lost Zone Charizard showed up to Barcelona and did very, very good. A lot of people decided to bring the deck, and now heading into events like Peoria, we have to prepare for it. So this deck is very good. It has the Lost Zone engine to be able to stay consistent. It's a little bit more consistent in the early game than Arceus Charizard is. And once you get those Charizards, powered up and going, it's really difficult to stop them from being able to just run you over. You also have things like Cramor and Sableye as well to manipulate damage. I'm a huge believer in this deck, and I think that it has a lot of potential moving forward. So we're going to put Charizard in tier 1 as of right now. I'm going to put Arc Charizard in tier 2. I think it's still very, very strong. I do think that it has some consistency issues, though, as it has so many stage 1 and 2 Pokemon. It can become a little bit more clunky, whereas the Comfey variant is a little bit more stable, I would say. However, if you are able to get it set up, you're able to get that Pidgeot going, that Charizard going, it is incredibly difficult to take down. However, it's just getting there that sometimes can be the issue. But it's a pretty respectable deck. Charizard with the heavy inclusion of the new Charizard, I don't think is great. I think the other variants are just a little bit better. The new Charizard is cool. However, if you're including multiple in your deck, I think it's pretty difficult to pull off, even if you're just playing one, because it takes so many energies to power up. So you'd probably need to play something like Magma Basin with this variant, and then you're damaging your Charizard, which makes it more easy for them to one-shot. So I think this version has problems. I don't think it's terrible, but as of right now, I think the other Charizard variants are just simply better. Moving into some of the new well, not necessarily new decks, but decks with new pieces. We have Colorless Lugia. I think Colorless Lugia is actually very, very good as of right now. It has things like Snorlax, Weird Ear, but most importantly, gains Mew EX. Mew EX with that restart ability, allowing you to draw once per turn up to 3 cards in your hand, and then also the genome hacking, being able to copy any of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks is very, very good. Free Retreat as well is just absolutely fantastic. So, for example, if you're going up against a Lost Zone Giratina deck and they attack you with Lost Impact, you can then throw up the Mew and utilize that Arceus' Primal Turbo to be able to power it up and then use genome hacking to copy Lost Impact. That's a big reason as to why I think Lugia Colorless is going to see more play, because Lugia Colorless' big issue was not being able to one-shot Pokemon. So now you have that ability to be able to handle those things like Giratina V-Star, which is really, really nice. You can also use it against things like Charizard. If you build your board on all one prizers after your Lugia V-Star falls, you can then pretty much set up a board state to where then you can finish off the game with a big genome hacking, which is pretty cool to deal 330 damage. So I think it has some potential. I don't think it's that bad, and I think we'll definitely see some play in the deck. So anyways, moving on here, we got some other decks to go over. Let's just keep doing Lugia. Single Strike Lugia is still tier 1. I think it's very good. I think that it's slightly better than the Colorless Lugia variant just because its power level is a little bit higher. What the Colorless version is not able to do is one-shot consistently, which is why it needs Mew, whereas this version just typically one-shots consistently, and if it needs to play Mew, it can. It does have a couple spots that it can like make adjustments to. I think every Lugia list is about 55 cards solid, and the last like 4 to 5 cards are usually pretty interchangeable. So I do think that, you know, Mew EX could definitely see some play in that deck as well. It's just incredibly powerful, has decent matchups against a lot of things. My only concern with this deck is that it does admittedly struggle to things like Charizard EX. So if Charizard EX sees a ton of play, then this version is going to have some major issues. So as of right now, though, I don't know how big Charizard is going to be. I still think decks like Lost Zone Giratina and just Lost Zone variants in general, as it just won Lost Zone Kyogre, most recently just won Pittsburgh, will be a ton of the meta, which is what Lugia does very, very good against, is just any deck pretty much with Comfey that's not named Charizard. So, overall, very, very strong deck, and I think it definitely is going to continue to perform well. Urshifu Intellion. Urshifu Intellion is a tier 1 deck. The deck is incredibly powerful as of right now. Most recently just won the Barcelona special event. With all these evolution-based decks running around, it is able to pounce on them with things like Double Gunner and G-Max Rapid Flow. Very, very good deck overall. Has decent matchups versus a lot of things. The big issue is that it does struggle against decks like Lugia and Mew. However, if you're able to dodge those, you have the chance of winning any tournament. So that's why I think this deck is very, very good. It takes very up and down matchups where if you know, when they flip over an Arceus, you're like, sick, this is going to be a great matchup. But if they flip over a Lugia or a Mew, you're like, oh, darn. Or if they flip over, you know, a Comfey, you're like, all right, this is going to be a good matchup. And if they flip over, you know, something like a Lugia or Tyranitar, you're like, oh, this is going to be a difficult matchup. So the deck is incredibly matchup based. However, if you do dodge those big 2 decks, I think that you are going to see lots of success, especially with Charizard potentially pushing Mew a little bit more out of the format. I think that Intellion has a potential to rise up to the very, very top, and it's showing itself at Barcelona. Definitely means that I think that it is here to stay, and it should be doing quite well. Chen Pao is a tier 2 deck. Its biggest issue is itself. If it's set up perfectly, it would be best deck in format. However, it just doesn't do that a lot of the time. So it kind of shoots itself in the foot with that issue that it consistently runs into. However, it's a very, very powerful deck when it gets going. It has decent matchups against a lot of things. Does admittedly struggle to Lost Zone decks and can struggle to Giratina as well. But if it goes up against things like Charizard, Lugia, things like that, it can do actually relatively decent against those, or just any big HP Pokemon that costs a lot to attack sometimes, like things like Arceus as well, you do pretty decent against. So yeah, I think the deck is decent, but I don't think it's in tier 1 as of right now. Lugia Aerodactyl, I don't think this is the way to play Lugia. We're going to put it into Rogue. I know some people are like, ooh, you can de-evolve things, but the logic is that if you get double Archeops, you should be able to just one-shot most things in general. So with that being said, I think that the Archeops is just better to have on the field, and if you only get one of them out, they can just boss's orders and KO it, and then you just lose half the time. So, or actually, honestly, more than half the time. So it does have some major issues. It does have some issues, and I think that staying away from the Aerodactyl is what you want to do. So yeah, Archeops is better. I'd focus on that instead of the Aerodactyl. But the Aerodactyl's cool. Anyways, we got Lugia, Kangaskhan. I think this deck is actually not terrible. We're going to put it in tier 3, top of tier 3. Kangaskhan does 100 damage for every coin flip that you flip. And you get to flip 4 coins. So you get to flip up to 400 damage, which I think is pretty cool. Statistically, you're doing 200 damage with that attack. If you're basing it off, doing 50-50 flipping 2 heads, 2 tails. So I think that's okay, but I just think it's worse than just regular colorless Lugia and Lugia Tyranitar. But it's a fun deck for sure. All the Arc decks, I think, just go in tier 3 as of right now. I don't think they're amazing. Just so many things are overpowering them at the moment. I think Arctina and just Arctina like Superior are probably at the top of tier 3. But I don't think these decks have a whole lot of footing in the metagame as of right now, just because there's so many things that deal so much damage right now in the format. Arceus, it's kind of crazy to say, but Arceus is kind of getting power crept out of the format, which just seems crazy because Arceus might possibly be one of the best cards, or in the top 5 best cards ever printed. It's just that with how the metagame is shaping up, and they're becoming less Pokemon that Arceus can Trinity Nova to, it is, starting to run a little bit low on options, and I think it's starting to fall a little bit out of favor as of right now. But I don't think the decks are terrible. I think they could definitely get you some points at something like a regional championship, or make you do well at a League Cup or something like that. I think the decks are decent, but I just don't think as of right now they're as good as they used to be. Maybe they come back in the future. Maybe they get some cool new cards that work out with them, but as of right now, I think they will be in the tier 3 spot as of right now. Miraidon Regieleki is just worse than Miraidon in every single way. Flaffy is just better as of right now. Regieleki is a major liability. Regular Miraidon, I think, is potentially best deck in format, or one of the best decks in format as of right now. It gains Mew EX and Zapdos EX as well, which are 2 huge cards in this deck. Most recently did incredibly well at, I believe, the Champions League in Japan, actually winning the tournament. And I think that this deck has a ton of potential moving forward. Already seen lots of success in major tournaments in Japan. And I do think that that's going to translate over, especially because we just saw Jesse Parker get second place at the most recent Pittsburgh Regional Championship. So there is data behind this deck doing well in a format like this, and since 151 doesn't change everything and actually gives it more good matchups like Blastoise, I think that it's definitely going to thrive still, and it really is just incredibly powerful as of right now. So tier 1 Miraidon, definitely a great deck, easy to pilot, great for newer players as well, and I think makes a great choice for upcoming tournaments. You can't really go wrong with it. It's incredibly consistent and does everything that it needs to do. Moving on, we got Meowscarada. We'll put that into Rogue along with Darkrai. I'll give Darkrai some respect. I think the deck's not terrible. We'll put it up to here in tier 3. But Meowscarada, it's kind of a Rogue deck. It's okay, but I don't think it's the best deck in the world. The same with things like Arbok. Arbok is cool. It has been seen a little bit of play, but I think is going to be Rogue for right now, along with Venomoth and these other things as well. I think they're all going to be Rogue. A lot of the 151 decks are kind of just Rogue, so I think we'll put those right there, along with also Tyranitar. Tyranitar's fun. I tried to make a deck work with Tyranitar, but I think it's Rogue as of right now. Maybe it gets some more cards that help it out, but as of right now, it's just not the most powerful deck in the format. It's a cool card, though, so yeah. Anyways, Palkia, I think, is a tier 3 deck as of right now. I think that Blastoise might just be better than Palkia. Blastoise being able to hit a lot, a pretty much more consistent amount of damage like every single time, I think is important. Having more HP as well is also important, and also just being a 2-prizer as well. It's just really, really good. So I think Blastoise is a little bit better. Palkia is still okay. It's consistent, but I think that it's almost just worse Miraidon, where they're basically 2-prize beat stick decks that just, try and just go hit as quickly as possible, just trying to beat your opponent down as quickly as possible. I think that Miraidon just does that a little bit more efficiently, and also has that almost unlimited damage cap with something like the Raichu. So I almost said Alolan Raichu. That's an old card. But yeah, no, I think that Palkia is probably going to be in tier 3. Good meme deck, good fun deck. However, can't beat Lost Box because the Wings of Unity deck there. Moving on. It's fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything worthwhile to say about it. It's fun. It's a cool deck. But I don't think it's that amazing right now. Anyways, moving on. We got ourselves Mew Meloetta. Mew Meloetta is probably it's probably bottom of tier 1. It does struggle to Charizard, but can be anything else, which is a reason as to why I like it. So I think we'll put it at bottom of tier 1. We'll put DTMU. DTMU is actually not that bad right now. I think if players do not put Spiritomb in their deck, it has a little bit more potential. So we'll put it at bottom of tier 2. I think this is a deck that might be better for something like Sacramento or Toronto Regionals, because at the moment we have Peoria, which is the first event of the 151 format. And if no one plays Spiritomb, then maybe DTMU gets good for Sacramento or Toronto, which are the regionals that happen after it. So it is, you know, a very big meta call, but it is also a risk to play in general as well. I think this deck does have a much better chance against Charizard because you play multiple paths, so you can path lock them turn after turn after turn, whereas the Fusion Mew version doesn't have that option. So that's kind of an issue that you run into. Gardevoir here. I think Gardevoir is probably still the best deck in format. It's just so incredibly powerful. It gains Mew EX as well, which is an option. I don't even think it needs to play the card, but I think that it has, you know, some potential moving forward in this deck. But yeah, no, Gardevoir is just great. Definitely one of the most powerful decks ever created, and I think is going to see more success. Can beat anything, can even beat things like Charizard and stuff like that. Does decent into Lugia, does okay into decks like Intellion and Fusion Mew. Those are shaky matchups. Does good into Miraidon. It just truly has everything that it needs to be successful. So Gardevoir is going to be probably the one BDIF deck that we have on here. I think it definitely is just incredible. We'll put Turbo Lost Box Goodra here as well. Goodra is kind of outclassed by a lot of other decks. However, I actually think it's pretty decent. It did get top 32 at the World Championship, so I think it has some potential. However, the big thing holding it back is consistency. Sometimes it's just not able to set up properly, so that would going to be the reason as to why I think that it's in tier 3 as of right now. Lost Box Charizard, solid tier 2 deck, probably bottom of tier 2, gets outclassed by some of the other Lost Box variants, but doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad deck. Turbo top of tier 2 as well, just solid deck in general. We'll actually probably put it under Colorless Lugia, because just with more Lugia decks popping up that do just well into Turbo, I think that Turbo will drop down a little bit. We got Lasso and Giratina. Lasso and Giratina was amazing last format, but with 151 coming out, Charizard becoming more popular is fine for it. The big thing is Lugia, though, and Lugia is a difficult matchup for Lasso and Giratina, which is why I have that currently at top of tier 2. Miraidon's also a very scary matchup along with Fusion Mew, so I think Lasso and Giratina is very good still. However, I don't think it's in tier 1 anymore. I think that as the metagame has shifted, along with also more Lost Zone like Turbo and Kyogre scene play, I think that it's probably going to be in that top of tier 2 as of right now. And then last up, we'll put Kyogre. Most recently won the Pittsburgh Regional Championships. Andrew Estrada taking down, I think, over 1,700 players. So very impressive for Andrew to see winning that tournament. I think Kyogre is still great. I think it's probably the second or third best deck in the format. We'll put it right there, give it its flowers. I think it deserves it. And yeah, this is my tier list as of right now. Let me know what you think of the comments of it. Let me know if there's anything that you disagree with, you know, anything that you feel like should be higher or lower. Let me know if there's also any decks that you felt like I missed that should, you know, kind of deserve its spot here. Also, make sure to put that in the comments. But anyways, thank you so much for all the support as always. I appreciate it. This is Smart TCG, and I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out, everyone. If you're looking to improve your game, I do offer coaching on Metafy. I was ranked in the top 16 ranked players in the world last season, and I know what it takes to improve your game. My students won a combined 3 regionals last year, and I know what it takes to reach that next level. I do offer a free coaching consultation so you can get an idea whether or not coaching works for you. And along with that, I also have a singular sessions, training packages, and more. If you're looking to find out more information, feel free to book that free consultation, or also don't hesitate to shoot me a message on Discord. My Discord will be in the description. All right. Thanks for sitting around and listening to this. I appreciate it. This is Smart TCG. I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out.